This is a good book. Oh, hey everybody, it's Jeffrey Bützer, and this is the Day for Night podcast, episode 3. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to the author of Paul Thomas Anderson, and his most recent book is Curtains of Light. He's an author. He is a professor of literature and film in Winnipeg, Canada. And yeah, we're talking about a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and he literally wrote the book on the guy. So I think he'll have some cool stuff to say about it. And yeah, he's written some of my favorite films with Guy Madden, Careful, Archangel, Saddest Music in the World, whole bunch of them. I have some images. You got those, Renee? Can we show those? Yeah, there we go. There's some posters. Fantastic writer, great guy, knows a lot about movies, way more than me. And yeah, excited to have him on the show. Thanks for coming on the show. George, come on in.
Okay.
Hey, George.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we've never met in person, only on texting on the computer.
Yeah, I have the, I guess, dubious distinction of being a heavy presence on Facebook. I committed myself, and for reasons that are too complicated maybe to explain briefly, to doing daily micro narratives on Facebook in 2008. And I haven't missed a day since. So there are thousands of these things floating around in the ether. And that's another, not guilty pleasure, but certainly active obsession.
Yeah, it can be a little engrossing sometimes, but yeah, that's how I connected with you, because I know Guy Madden, but not like personally. Like I don't know. Do you know Chris Hefner from Chicago?
I think I've met Chris Hefner. Guy still lives in Winnipeg, and we had a lengthy time out in our long-term friendship after Keyhole, but we are now bosom buddies again. We're not collaborating on anything at the moment, but we see movies together at my place, usually one night a week, and I think our friendship's flourishing, and without any professional expectations or tensions. It's great there's no one better to watch a movie with other than my wife and than Guy Madden.
Yeah. Well, that's how I became aware of you, and because I worked with Chris Hefner, I scored a movie for him, and Guy is always really nice and looks at everybody's stuff, all of his friends and stuff, and I guess he had commented on my music, and that blew my mind that he had heard it, because you guys' movies are some of my favorites. I mean, I grew up Careful, Archangel.
I'm gonna turn this worrisome light off.
Yeah, no problem.
Just a second. I think it'll look better. Sure.
Yeah, audience people, you guys should look up their movies. They're really wonderful. Especially I think the first one I saw in the theater was Saddest Music in the World, and yeah, that's a good one.
I'm devoted to that. It was wonderful too.
Keyhole is wonderful too. I forgot about that when I was going through the
Kazuo Ishiguro screenplay, though I don't think a single line from that script remains. He was astonishingly willing to let us have, after much back and forth meeting, a free hand with it. And I adore Ishiguro's writing, especially The Unconsoled, which I think is one of the best novels, period. But I would love to think, I mean, Ishiguro was kind about the movie. I'd love to think that it has an Ishiguro feel to it, that it doesn't leave his tone or sensibility or even his narrative ambitions with the original script too far behind.
Yeah, I think so. I loved it. the movie you picked to talk about, we went through a couple, and the first one you mentioned was Todd Field's In the Bedroom. I know you're a big fan of that, and I told I
You,
and I, and I, and I
you
asked you if we.
can't
I,
stand it, I think, is your
no, I think I don't. I always say I don't think there's any such thing as a bad movie. There's only movies people don't like, and I think it's like wonderfully made. It was just very upsetting to me. And the other movie you picked was equally upsetting. And
what's that?
that's the so yeah. You introduced that, and then I have a question about upsetting movies. So you want to explain the movie you picked,
Yeah.
the first one?
Which one? Fish
Oh,
Tank?
Fish Tank. Yeah, you want to? Let's do that one first.
Yeah. Well, it's a 2009 film by Andrea Arnold, who's also made perhaps a little better known independent film called American Honey. And
Hmm.
before Fish Tank, there was a sexually explicit film called Red Road. Well, I think you could very loosely put her in the company of the kitchen sink realist tradition of British movies. I mean, she's once asked Ken Roach if he was tired of um, hearing that she was influenced by him. Uh, but I think better than doing it, I would say a gritty, primarily political kind of cinema about uh, disadvantaged communities and what they're going through. I think her starting point is, uh, listen, I grew up there. I'm not talking about it as an alien or someone with an anthropological interest. I see these characters as peers, as figures who fascinate me by no means moralistically, as involved in a complex and familiar struggle. I think the character of Mia, who is a young girl who's failing at education, who's friendless, whose mother uh, doesn't work, had children way too young, parties all the time, barely has any sense of what her daughter is doing. She wanders about, at this point in her days, friendlessly, with ambitions to be perhaps a dancer, though she has only mild dancing ambitions. Now, this sounds, in my capsule summary, like a super oppressive film in its situation. And I'm not denying that it's fierce and tough going, but there's something I think instantly and deeply compelling about Katie Jarvis's characterization of Mia. She has just this immense energy, and she just seems indestructible regardless of the adverse circumstances. And she has uh, a harsh humor, a way about her. I mean, she's always on the move, um, and trying to forge her own crazy path. She has a younger sister named Tyler. And briefly, to get to the main plot, her mother's new boyfriend is a guy named Connor, who seems in the early stages of the film like he might potentially be a source of good and benefit, uh, for for the young girl and even for the mother. And so the movie is not by any means portraying him from the get-go as a monster. In fact, Michael Fassbender, who plays this character, took immediate and huge exception to a question from an audience member about his character in Fish Tank. He said he's utterly irresponsible. He he doesn't like himself very much. He's lost. He does a bad thing. He said, please let's not put him into some kind of monster category. He is, in his opinion and in mine, a character who was viewed three dimensionally and without, I would say, uh, a final ethical verdict. He's a mess in certain ways, but every character in the film is tinctured by various, let's say, strange and palatable impulses. Would you? I don't know. Does that at least?
Yeah, you characterized it great.
A little bit of plot territory and where the film is. I think the film ends not romantically, but not disastrously either. I mean, the movie, it's one of those films in which the next Mia's life is very open. She's decided against, and wisely against, being sent off to some wretched school. She takes off with a person closer to her own age she's met, who's managed to steal enough pieces to make his Volvo roadworthy again. They have plans to go somewhere for a time, and the last image of the film is this inflated heart balloon sailing along.
Yeah, I really like that shot. That's great.
Yeah. So
yeah, part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast is because I kind of have my like people, my guys and girls that direct movies that I watch, and I get in the box, and so I wanted to see something I hadn't seen, and like this is something I would have never sought out. Even though my sister's a dancer, I don't usually watch movies about dancers. Um, but yeah, I did enjoy. I thought of a couple people, and I thought of a couple movies. I thought it reminded me a lot of Diary of a Teenage Girl. Did you ever see that with Kristen Wiig?
Yeah,
That's a much.
But before, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off. Finish what.
Oh no, it's just that was like a sort of like Diet Coke version of this. It was a lot lighter.
Yes, well, I have to say every movie that I love has at least one segment. This film has a number of them, but one standout segment I wish I'd thought of, wish I'd written, and just admire extravagantly. And the first thing that pops to mind when someone says fish tank is the farewell scene between this, in so many ways, hopeless and clued out mother, uh, who has this gigantic mural in her living room of, I think it's Palm Beach, Florida, and before Mia's out the door, she mentions that she'd been listening to one of her CDs and kind of likes it, so they put on a NASCAR, which is "Life's a Bitch," and
Yeah.
then you die and you get high. And no, okay, first choice of music, but secondly, and unironically, an unexpected coming together of mother and the two daughters doing a dance to this.
Yeah.
The little sister is the caboose, and they're together in the living room, and man, it's not verbal, it's not teary eyed, but it's a stronger moment of connection than they've achieved at any previous point in the film. Playing against the savagely negative lyric about your chances in life of finding meaning, and I just thought that scene just knocked me on my ass.
Yeah, it was incredible. The little girl. I mean, for her age. The little sister I thought was like really great. Kind of sometimes like these movies, you'll have like a powerhouse, and then the other actor can't quite keep up. I
Right.
felt like that in Rebecca Miller's Ballad of Jack and Rose. You had
Uh,
like you had Beau Bridges and Catherine Keener and Daniel Day Lewis, and some of the younger actors just couldn't really keep. But in this, like the child actor keeps up with the, she was great in it. I was reminded of a couple filmmakers. Another British woman. I was thinking of Lynn Ramsey when I
yeah,
watched it.
I
If
think I think Andrea Arnold has more obvious heart than
Yeah, for
the
sure.
Gordon Ramsay movies I've been exposed to. Uh, um, I just think I'm always moved by the experiences of the characters more that I'm shocked or appalled, which often
Right.
seems to be Lynn Ramsey's uh, first port of call.
Yeah,
But
I like her work. I guess I just was thinking of them being fellow country women, and and I don't know. There's something about their films had a similar feel, and also
yeah,
I guess I thought a little bit of Larry Clark, not so much on kids, but maybe like I think early before the movie got going, I was thinking of Larry Clark because I thought it was going to go a different direction. I thought it was going
right,
to end up more like Bully or yeah, like I thought it was going to
right.
go a little twistier than it
Yeah.
did. Which
Rather
I'm
than rather than selling the characters, um, let's say, virtues or aspirations to us in the early minutes, I think we see her as the film gets underway at nearly her behavioral worst. She's just been dumped by her best friend and uh, goes over to her apartment when her father tells her she she's not around, starts winging stones and swearing at him, then finding her dancing with her other friends, smashing her head with her own head and drawing blood,
Yeah, that's why
rounding
early
her,
on, yeah, I was thinking,
stalking off in a rage. And you just feel this is our hero. I mean, but
yeah,
it seems to me that well, what Andrea Arnold said about the discovery of this person. There are all kinds of talented dancers and actresses who are auditioned, and but Arnold hadn't found someone who felt and that at the core, right. But she was at a subway stop and saw this young girl screaming at her boyfriend across the subway platform. Uh, Katie Jarvis, this girl had never acted at all, but within minutes, apparently, of meeting her, um, Arnold had a strong intuition that this was the one,
yeah,
and uh, according to Fassbender, the film was fully scripted, but the actors were not shown the script. It was shot from start to finish in without any deviation, and they got the pages for the next day. So really, Michael Fassbender had no idea that he was eventually going to molest or
yeah,
engage in sex with me. And he said this was a tough way to work. But going back to the little girl, apparently she was not as capable as Katie Jarvis was of memorizing scripted dialogue, but she was apparently a champion improviser. So
oh
uh,
wow,
they would have her just riff and then work dialogue out on the spot based on her riffs and so that's how it proceeded. But I mean, the movie was in fact very tightly scripted, and
Hmm.
with this hiding the marble approach to character, so people
Yeah,
really didn't get a chance to, let's say, suss out in any full way am I? Where am I going? You're just sort of living it moment by moment,
Hmm.
based on your sense of the situation in the here and now.
Oh, yeah. So I have a question about this one. For you about your own writing. Um, uh, this is the second film that I know of that's prominently used California Dreaming. Well, I guess now there's the new Quentin Tarantino one uses it too, but Chunking Express, uh, and then the Bobby Womack version is in this. And so I'm like an amateur screenwriter. I've written several scripts. Of course, I haven't been produced. You know how life goes. And when I was about 18, I had an image in my head of Vikings, a Viking boat, hitting the land to California Dreaming, and that,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if when you write, if you ever think like musically like that, like you'll hear a song, and then that'll kind of just like, if inform like an image or an idea.
I would say, I mean, Guy has frequently uh, um, chooses certain pieces at early script stage, and well, especially in saddest music in the world. I mean, I knew before the script was written that it was going to be song is used, so it's going to be. I mean, a large part of uh, the based on Roderick Usher musician character who plays the cello, that his piece would be the key to his obsession. It would probably work into the climax. But yeah, I mean, we I remember we had many preliminary discussions about what in fact the saddest music in the world was if we had to vote. And there was a day where Guy and I were both agreed that the song "Happy Birthday"
Yeah,
was a real
I
contender.
remember him saying that. And I saw an interview with him, and I remember him saying that "Happy Birthday" is the saddest song, and that's pretty good. Yeah. Hey, Julio's in here. I'm seeing some comments now. Yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. Oh, hey, what's up, Roy? Um, yeah, I enjoy it. I'm transitioning into your work, but switching to the next movie. First of all, I'll mention my relationship with Paul Thomas Anderson. Uh,
Mm,
and then you can explain to me why you wanted to focus on a book on him. So here's how it went with me and Paul. Um, I was a film projectionist. You don't know me very well, but I was a film projectionist for a really long time. And so I would watch everything. And so I actually got to see Hard Eight when it came out. A lot of people, Boogie Nights was the first one. I saw Hard Eight, and I lumped it in with all those like after Pulp Fiction movies. There was tons of them with cool gangsters doing cool gangster stuff. And that one stood out to me, and I really loved it, and I really loved Gwyneth Paltrow. I hadn't really seen her much and stuff. I thought she was like stand out. And then this guy I started working with me, and he's like, "Hey, you know that guy that did Hard Eight?" And I was like, "Nope," but I saw it. He's like, "He's doing this new movie sort of based on John Holmes," and you know, I'm a couple years younger than you, so I was probably 17 or 18 when Boogie Nights came out. So Boogie Nights became like my movie I was just completely looking forward to, and like I was like counting down the days till it came out. And when I saw it, my initial viewing, I kind of hated it because I was a young film student, and so I was obsessed with Altman and Scorsese, and I felt like I saw all his tricks. Like I was like, oh, I've seen this. Like, oh, I can't believe, I thought this guy was like unique, and he's just doing Altman, and Scorsese doing all these shots and blah blah blah, all these characters. I really didn't like it, and it bothered me that I didn't like it. But then Magnolia comes out, and that one blew me away, even though it frequently was compared to Shortcuts. And then the one you picked, Punch Drunk Love, is what flipped me around because I don't even think it not only breaks his mold, but the time it came out is when all of those Charlie Kaufman movies were coming out, and it almost fits into that world, and it's so much smaller. Since then, I love all of his movies. I love Boogie Nights, but Punch Drunk Love's the one that I was like, oh yeah, I love this dude. He's great. And ever
yeah,
since then, he's been just like one of my favorites. And I talk about every week. I've got a poster for The Master right here. The Master is my favorite modern film. But yeah, what was your relationship like with
Okay,
his
it
work and?
isn't so different from yours. Punch Drunk Love was the movie. I mean,
Mhm,
the absolute find. I mean, which made me think. I think I've completely missed the boat on this guy.
mhm,
I've got to really go back. I mean, it's not that I didn't have an initially satisfactory experience with Magnolia, and then uh, when I well, I was approached to do a possible book in this director series of contemporary directors, and um, usually how it works is that you attempt to cover the whole career, but I had a different plan in mind. It just seemed to me that after Magnolia, there was this incredible shift from people who can't stop talking to people who don't know how to talk at all.
yeah,
And I mean, The Master and Punch Drunk Love and There Will Be Blood are people for whom verbal expression is a complicated, dangerous process. Um, they're not articulate or able to find easy routes from emotion to language. And I felt that this was an interesting um, mystery in a way that he became kind of a different director. Though Bunch Drunk Love really isn't like in ways that I could readily identify or list. I mean, I just think Punch Drunk Love is like Shoot the Piano Player in of Francois Truffaut. It is, I mean, it's one of those magical occasions when you would think it's all of these bizarre elements which somehow need each other, speak to each other without the least sense that the director is forcing it. I mean, it's just
yeah,
putting things out there for the sake of being this or that. It just seems that it just seemed so purely inexplicably its own world and thing. And uh, everything about it seemed um, right to me. I mean, the
mhm,
soundtrack, which the first time I saw the film, I felt I was going to have a nervous breakdown, but of a good sort, listening to the soundtrack. I mean, bombardment of the film, but um, suddenly seeing Adam Sandler in that corner of his uh, office space in the garage
mhm,
on the phone as a kickoff for this movie,
yeah,
and seeing that. Okay, here's the thing. I mean, it just seemed I'd seen a lot of Adam Sandler, and then what Anderson is doing is this amazing distillation of elements that Sandler has tried in various contexts, but making all of it real as
mhm,
opposed to stylized and goofy. I mean, to have the anger that's tearing this person apart to be genuine rather than uh, comfortable comic rage. And
right,
I mean, the film is both so acutely aware of loneliness and pain and isolation, but it's just so brilliantly funny and loose and
yeah,
all over the place and able to take all of these things which would seem not to be easily relatable to other things and to create something which finally feels seamless. I mean, it's just everything dances to the same amazing unheard of before beat. Now, the first time I saw this movie in a theater, I was in heaven, but the people around me were clearly hating it. They
Yeah,
were
that happened.
they were absolutely this was I mean, notice the detestation, the rage effect, and why does this happen so often when you love a movie that
Oh, I know.
you
It can
can't
really
find immunity for it? And I went to the washroom afterward. These people were screaming out it was the worst film they'd ever seen, uh, and you try to protect your experience.
yeah.
And I immediately went back. Fortunately, the next audience was not as disgracefully bad, but I was just thinking, my God, this movie is just so fresh, original, and marvelous, so assured. And not, I mean, and nothing about its relationship seemed to me to be off the rack in terms of other romantic comedies,
No.
but and the way in which Lena and Barry function as a couple, but the whole stretch of the beginning with their meeting and the retrieval of the harmonium, it's one unbelievably great idea after another, just spilling out. I just can't get over that movie still.
Oh, I
So
know.
that for me, I love The Master. I love There Will Be Blood. I really love Phantom Thread, but
Mhm.
Punch Drunk Love is the movie that turned my world upside down. Sometimes
Did you like Sandler before that? Did you
I
like
did.
him?
I mean, I liked him all right, but I underestimated him. I was thunderstruck by the brilliance of his performance in the movie.
Yeah, it's really good.
See, it was absolutely internal. There was not a there was not a false moment in it, and he
Mm-mm.
seemed so incredibly in touch with who Barry Egan is. So I'm sure he, like Anderson, like me, would find it very difficult to explain rationally what how Barry Egan's psychology works.
Well, I think I think comedians in general. There's a lot of documentaries about just the loneliness and darkness that comedians have, and I think he brought so much of that to the. Speaking of that, I love that. I always notice these weird little connections. He cast Robert Smigel in this, which is like one of Adam Taylor's best friends. If somebody's
Mhm.
watching and you're like, Who's Robert Smigel? It's Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. He was a writer for Conan.
Yes.
But he does that a lot. He always sticks these comedians, and I felt really stupid. So I'm jumping around, but There Will Be Blood. There's a scene with the one of the best Saturday Night Live writers of all time, Jim Downey, and it was like 2 years ago I finally put two and two together that Jim Downey is Robert Downey Sr.'s brother. I don't know
Well,
why I didn't pick up on that, but
I'm sure you're not to be faulted in any way for taking a while to nail that.
yeah, I just like I had
By
to.
no means universally known bit of trivia.
Well,
Um,
I'm a really big Robert Downey Sr. fan, and I got into him because um, um, Paul Thomas Anderson in the '90s kept talking about Putney Swope, and I wasn't able to find it until about 10 years ago. And
right.
for those of you guys that don't know, Anderson is like a huge fan of uh, Robert Downey Sr., Robert Downey Jr.'s father, who was like an underground New York filmmaker. And it's cool because you can see, like, even in Punch Drunk Love, you can see like these like the realism of the Altmans and stuff, but it has the weirdness. Occasionally he like just throws something kind of wacky in there, like him dragging the phone with him like all the way out of state.
Walking all the way to Utah, I mean, to the mattress company, which is
That's one
sometimes
of my favorite little details. And
one of those dream encounters. I mean, a encounter the sort you have in a dream. Um, in so many ways, the Philip Seymour Hoffman nemesis is this version of Barry Egan, and their face off ends with uh, that's that's it then.
yeah,
uh,
what it. Oh, it's such a great climax to a film. I mean, it's such a like you said. I'm glad you picked this one because our guest last week, Sean Zierfoss, I gave him a copy of it, and he opened it up, and there was $300 in it. By the way, somebody at my work had
So,
stuck $300 in it, so he got a
so
movie and $300.
someone's so grateful for what Punch Drunk Love had done for him or
Yeah,
her, that okay, the next person who sees this film is not only going to have the joy and thrill of discovery of a film, but it's going to get a cash bonus on top of it.
yeah. Early on in the movie, for those people who haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while, and I mean, pretty much opens up with this like van just randomly driving up and putting a pump organ or a harmonium, whatever you want to call it, like those field organs, on the side of the road, and he takes it, and it seems almost like one of these like just random things throughout the film that's like a motif. But to me, I guess because I'm a musician, I kept thinking about, like you said, the John Bryan's score is just chaos. It's
Yes.
like it's very anxiety inducing. And what
Yes.
he does in the movie is every time he's kind of flipping out, he goes to the harmonium and he plays a very simple melody. And to me, it's almost like he's trying to take hold of the score of the film to
Mm, yeah.
it's not meta, but the film isn't meta at all. But like in my mind, I was like,
Yeah.
that those are the moments when he's trying to finally take back, like he can hear the
Yeah.
music that
No,
we're hearing or something.
no, it is. I mean, its arrival coincides almost precisely with the arrival of Lena,
Right.
and I mean, of those lens flare rainbows that start appearing. But I mean, the harmonium is initially damaged in a manner that I mean, he tries to repair it with duct tape, but he begins to he starts getting sounds out of it, and I love the way in which it not only is a kind of alternate score for his life, but he has to physically carry it with him at various points. I mean, to make things work with Lena. I mean,
Right.
showing up with that harmonium, um, as as though it well is this object that has suddenly escaped from him, but is still a part of him. I mean, again, you don't. The last thing you want to do is to nail these metaphors down
Right.
hard, but and again, it could go so drastically, art schoolly wrong if you don't handle it delicately. I think that harmonium in his office, which he begins to play, as the Beyond score and the color patterns begin to appear, is just such an achingly beautiful way of talking about a lonely soul's inner life and trying to reclaim it. It's stunning.
Yeah, it's really something. Like I said, that really got me interested in him, and I like There Will Be Blood quite a bit. I'm not like um as excited as the internet is about it. Like you,
Right.
you see it on all these top 10. Like I love it. I think it's a great movie. It's a very masculine movie, and there's a lot of testosterone flying, and I like that about it. And I love it. I love how big Daniel Day Lewis is in it. But like I said, The Master. That's the one that made me even go back again and rewatch everything because I was like, oh, this guy is something.
Yeah.
And I've liked all of them. I really like. We talked about Licorice Pizza the other day. I mean, that one's pretty lighthearted. I don't think I'll watch it 15 times like I have The Master. But I mean, he's really something. Like I've been really impressed with him over the years, and
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm glad I went back and visited
There's a
Boogie
book.
Nights.
There's a book you may know called "Rebels of the Backlot," which is about
I don't
nine
know
American directors of the '90s and chapters on Anderson from that period make him seem, and I can believe it, and I think he would probably admit to it. I mean, quite an arrogant piece of work, almost impossible to um,
that.
argue with.
Yeah,
Um, No,
Well, he
he
was like what? Oh, sorry.
had a titanic ego, but a kind of astounding degree of self confidence, which was, I mean, so I don't know. Combined though with I can't. I mean, he realized he had tons to learn from Robert Altman and
Yeah,
really
yeah,
do anything on his sets. That he was, and that he had, like Altman, a deep veneration of actors. I just think,
yeah,
I mean, so many of his movies are built around performers and what they can most excitingly and mysteriously accomplish.
yeah.
But I,
You had. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think I that Punch Drunk Love was in certain ways, though Anderson never talked about this in interviews. I think was a breakup
Mhm.
aftermath movie. I mean, I guess the Fiona Apple um ending was painful and crazy, and that it offered at least some small part of the flow in the movie. But again, in the movie is well. What I was going to say is that the general feeling is that Paul Thomas Anderson's films are very male centered, but the thesis
Mhm.
of my book is that, in fact, the mother, even in There Will Be Blood, is a figure more important than the father. And
Mhm.
I didn't, Phantom Thread hadn't come out yet when the book was finished, but I have to say that watching that mother scene in Phantom Thread, I was saying, Eureka, nailed
Yeah.
it.
No, no. I don't think all of his films are. I just that one is.
Yeah. Well,
But
but I mean, the way in which Daniel Plain views his relationship with women in the movie, and well, that first relationship with a guy who's his partner in the well, who's eventually killed. He takes over his child from him, and um, there's something interestingly um suppressed. All of the female energy in that movie is suppressed, and it comes out, it leaks out of the movie in all kinds of weird little ways. That's a different story.
yeah.
Um, were there other? I'm sorry to get on that topic, but
No,
other
no.
things you wanted to cover or chat around?
Other what?
Were there other topics you wanted to?
Oh no, no. I just want to piggyback on what you were saying about his young arrogance. Is like one thing I was comment on is you can tell since he's been married to Maya Rudolph and have children how
Yes,
how calm he is now.
yes,
And like he's
totally
like
different.
he's like the opposite of Quentin Tarantino. Like I saw an interview with him, and Quentin Tarantino was like, "My movie, my movie, my movie," and then it would go to Paul, and he's like, "Yeah, let's talk about your movie." Like he's very like egoless now. He seems like I mean I'm sure he has an ego, but yeah,
No,
he was wasn't he like 22 when he made Hard Eight? So I
yes.
know he was like he was really young, right?
Speaking of interviews with Anderson, he was very enthusiastic about the Safdie brothers.
Yeah,
He talked about the Sandler collaboration that they had, but rather than talking about let's talk some more about Punch Drunk Love. He was entirely um, interested in what was going on with their relationship now and what they were trying to do with
yeah,
and then it just became this great Adam Sandler appreciation session with
yeah. If you guys are listening,
stories about him.
the viewers listening, you guys should look that up. It's the Safdie brothers. It's the Safdie brothers and yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson Conversation podcast. If you just you guys know how to work Google. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, we're wrapping up pretty soon, so you can put them up on the screen. Um, But yeah, no, I think he was pretty arrogant. But he was. I heard stories about like he pulled like a Larry David, where like when they did Hard Eight, they were like, well, we're gonna because it was originally called Sydney, and they were like, no, we're gonna change the name and do this. And he was like, well, if you're not doing it my way, I'm walking out. I think he was like one of those guys.
Yes.
I'm always fascinated by those people because I know if I ever was like in a situation where millions of dollars were going into a movie and they were like, no, change the name, I'd be like, okay, change the name. I know I'd fold faster than Superman on laundry day, as they say.
Where he said he has since expressed a little regret about listening to no editing suggestions on
Hmm.
Magnolia. He said it not only needs these 3 hours, it needs more than these
Yeah,
3 hours. He said,
I don't mind the running on. I've never minded the running time on Magnolia.
I haven't either. But I mean, he said, were he editing it now, his approach might be uh, a little less save everything.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do you like the Safdie brothers? Speaking of that, they've only done a handful.
I love um good why is it the good time.
Good times. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
That
I think
is
so.
fantastic. I like Uncut Gems.
Mhm.
It is deafening, that film. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a bit much.
I think I think Sandler's terrific in it. I think it's got an amazing ending. I think
Hmm.
if you can get to the ending, it can suddenly make you feel okay, it was all worth it. But with Good Time, I
Yeah,
felt I was just again thrilled to make what seemed to me a major discovery of talents that were up to something that I hadn't uh, gotten used to at all.
yeah. I'm always really like, how they say like people after their 20s kind of quit seeking out new music. I'm kind of opposite with movies. Like, I'm always so excited about new young filmmakers.
Mhm.
Her name is escaping me, but I really love that woman that did A Girl Walks Home at Night.
Right.
Her name's like something Anna Lily Kapoor, something like that. I can't think of her name.
Yeah.
And the Safdies. Have you seen any films by Rick Alverson? I wanted to bring him up
No,
earlier.
I
So I
haven't.
think you would really like him because, like Punch Drunk Love, he does these movies where he takes comedians and he basically makes like unfunny movies. He made a
Mhm.
movie with Tim Heidecker and Eric from Tim and Eric called The Comedy, and the joke is it's a pretty like straight ahead, almost I don't know, almost cinema verite like just a look at these like yuppie jerks in New York, and I think you'd like that. And his
Well,
last
is there any comedy in it? I mean,
yeah,
I
there's some jokes. I mean, there's some laughs in it, but it's like his films are pretty dark. The last one I know, guys saw it. It's called The Mountain. It has Jeff Goldblum in it. I thought maybe you might have seen that. It reminded me a bit of The Master. It's about
I
the
haven't
first.
I haven't seen it. I've made notes on both
Oh,
of these. I
it's it's
will.
um it's about the first lobotomist, and it's he's played by Jeff Goldblum, and it has Ty Sheridan in it, and one of my all-time favorite actors, Denis Lavant from you know him, right?
Yes.
From the Leos Carax movies and Claire Denis movies. He I think you'll really like his work.
Okay.
We're gonna wrap up here in a second. I want to talk about some of your new work, and I want to get a film recommendation for the audience from you. But I'm not tricking you into talking about the Master, but I know you didn't want to do a whole show on the Master. But I have a question for you about the Master. So, like I said, it's my favorite modern film, and what I noticed about it was the more I watched it, the funnier it got. And I kept talking to people about this, and I was like, it's really like, it's like, it's not a comedy, but it's like everything started getting funnier to me, and I thought maybe I was alone. And then I heard him do a podcast recently, and they said, "Will you ever do a straight up comedy?" And he kind of glibly said, "Well, I thought I did with The Master." And so I started doing a little research, and apparently I'm not the only one who thinks it's funny. And Joaquin Phoenix has made comments on how funny it is. But what's
Well,
your
I don't think I would say it takes a second viewing to receive permission to laugh. I just think uh, it just seems to me that there's so much that's bewildering and and you're you're trying your damnedest to figure out Freddie on any level and
Hmm.
to see what the relationship with Scientology, and I mean, I just think it's challenging. I mean, and there's nothing linear remotely, so you're just struggling to understand. And with that much struggle to comprehend, I think being opened to comic inspiration pretty impossible. Um,
I don't think all movies are like this, but I think this is definitely a movie that the Master is definitely a movie that like you have to see it twice. I don't think you've seen it if you've seen it once. It's
right.
so complex, but yeah, that's something I've talked to about a million people, and half of them agree with me, and then half of them are like, "It's not funny at all. What are you talking about?" But
Well,
I find almost everything is funny now when I watch it. Like from
yes,
him lighting his cool, the line he says where he's like, "I love the minty taste." Like that makes me laugh. Him singing "Slow Boat to China" really cracks me up. Just, I mean, I laugh out loud at it like I'm watching a Sandler movie. It's so funny to me. Yeah, Joaquin had said,
how about the argument in prison and the pissing?
"Yeah,
Uh,
nobody likes you." I've had those arguments with my brothers and sisters. Nobody likes you. I'm the only person that likes you. You're unlikable. It's just, oh man, I like I said, I
oh,
could do a four
Freddie,
hour.
when Freddie smashes up his prison cell, I'm in stitches, of course, and when they meet in the front yard and roll around in the yard on the lawn
Oh
together,
yeah,
as though they were uh, 5-year-olds after a 6-month separation.
yeah. Well, I always say, I mean, the movie is a complicated like if you say this to the wrong person, they think you mean it's like a repressed homosexual movie, which I guess you could read it like that, but it's not. I think it's about Freddie and the Master being in love, but knowing
Yeah,
that neither of them are homosexual and neither of them can be together, but they have this deep, deep love for one another. And anyway,
yeah,
I love it.
yes, great.
But okay, so we're
There are
getting
no questions from anybody. I'm sorry if I wasn't question engendering.
oh no, I don't know that I don't. They're not popping up, so I don't know if we're not getting any or if they're not popping up. But so we're at the end. We're going to do some film recommendations. But what do you have going on? I know you have your recent book, Curtain of Light, correct?
It's of light theatrical space and film, which has got. I'm not gonna. It's too complicated to go into now, but there are chapters on films that I think people would be likely to know and appreciate, including Mulholland Drive, which is the
Mhm.
cover photo for the book,
Oh,
and
cool.
uh, my long-awaited. I'm joking, but I mean, everybody has to have their run at Hitchcock's Vertigo, and this book contains mine, and I think it's at the very least unusual. Uh,
Yeah, I know we had a you we got into a thing on not a thing, but on a Facebook about an Ingmar Bergman quote about Alfred Hitchcock. And to clear the air, I love Hitchcock. I
I,
just liked his quote.
I just it's hilarious that Ingmar Bergman, a guy who in his autobiography is talking about his hypochondria and bowel difficulties on every other page. It's about 900 girlfriends, hero who was whipped to the point of unconsciousness by his father and having to kiss his father's hand with a whip hand after the killing was done. Who said, uh, who left home at the age of 15. I mean, I love Bergman, but let's not uh, let's not bandy the word infantile around uh, too freely without taking
No,
some part of it on oneself.
yeah, no, I'm just a troublemaker. I thought it was funny. I love when directors have like these hot
Yeah, they're
takes on
always
other.
taking shots at each other. I mean, it's always easy to love the dead directors more than the living ones.
Godard, you can just spend a day reading trash. He was like He was like a gossip queen, man. He talked about everybody. He hated pretty much everybody except like Nicholas Ray. You know, I mean, it seemed like he did, and
Oh, he could
Sam
turn on,
Cole, like
but he always had. I will give. Uh, um, he had such extraordinary skill with aphorisms. I mean, his, his one sentence statements, which just make you, oh, I could go 50 miles with a sentence, and if they're only about 15 words in it, but Godard's really has a way of projecting you into and past whatever it is he's just blithely chatting about.
yeah, for sure. He's a witty fella. Well, George, thanks so much for doing this. It's been a fountain of information, and I could talk for hours with you about
Oh, the film I was going to recommend
yeah,
is
you
from
want to do yours first?
last year. I can't believe that I was 100% on board with a late Ridley Scott period film written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, but I thought Last Duel was terrific. And if you haven't
Last
seen it,
duel.
The Last Duel, if you haven't seen it, give it a try. It's sort of it's not sort of it's definitely a variation on Rashomon, but it doesn't merely milk
Oh,
the the Kurosawa cow.
it's
It,
that's one with Adam Driver and Matt Damon, right?
mm-mm.
Okay, yeah, I haven't. It's on my list. I haven't seen it.
Adam Driver
Yeah,
was pretty
I
good
didn't.
in it. Adam Driver
What?
was in maybe every other movie made last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of I hate to say I was a little disappointed with Annette. I love Leos Carax so much, but a musical with Adam Driver, I liked it, but I didn't
I wasn't
love.
crazy about it. I do go gaga over Holy Motors, though.
Oh yeah, that's the episode that's airing on Friday is on Boy Meets Girl, his debut. Have you seen that one?
Sorry, Boy Meets
Have you
Girl.
seen Leos Carax's first movie, Boy Meets Girl?
Right, yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the show we're doing on Friday is with Ian Dean, and we discussed that. Yeah, he's one of my dudes. I couldn't really. I was like kind of drawing a blank on recommending something that ties in with what we're talking about. But I was thinking,
Recommended The Mountain and the comedy, which I
well,
will. So I'll definitely look at those.
okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I'd recommend the comedy if you guys want to see um something with a comedian that's not one of their typical roles. Check out Tim Heidecker and yeah, and then the other one I we have a poster for is did you see Claire Denis Let the Sunshine In?
Not yet. Oh,
Oh, okay. Claire Denis is like, oh man, she's like one of my favorites.
I've, I've,
That's a really nice.
caught, I've caught 34 shots of rum quite a few times.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She's I think she's just wonderful. Yeah, I think everybody should go. It's pretty cool. The last couple movies we've done have been directed by women. Where we did one by this Chinese director Teresa Wu, and then you picked Fish Tank. But yeah, folks, I would check out. You just got some thank yous, George, in the comments. A lot of people saying thanks
Great.
for doing this. We do really appreciate this. You're a heavyweight guest. It's really cool to have you on and give us some street cred.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm glad
Yeah, man.
dogs haven't created chaos.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Well,
was so interesting talking to you. Thanks, George. Have a good night, man. Thanks.